So when we got to Motorcycle Live this year, which is 2023, we did our usual and we headed straight for the test ride zone. This time I chose to ride a cruiser style bike. It's a style I've not ever ridden before and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. So at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, once we'd done alcohol test, got into our biking gear and been shown out to where the bikes are and been given the rules, I sort of threw a leg over the Royal Enfield 650 Super Meteor. First thing that struck me was how low it was. Really low. It's about 4 inches lower than my bike. And although I can get my feet flat on the floor with my bike, as soon as I start trying to move it around while I'm sat on the seat, yeah, I'm on tiptoes. First thing I notice about this is you sat on it, you start pushing about with your feet, it moves dead easy. That's true even though it weighs the same as my Kawasaki, and all you really need to do with handlebars is just move them. So it's steer whichever way it is that you want to go. It's really easy. The other thing I noticed when I looked around is that a lot of the buttons were unfamiliar. Most of our bikes, they have a kill switch and a starter button. And I was looking around, where the hell is there? On the right hand side there's a little red switch that moved left and right, and under it there was another switch that also went left and right. Didn't look anything like a starter button to me. Now it turned out to start it, you just turn the red switch and it fires up and you let go of it and that's it. The bike's running. Some of the other buttons were a little bit unusual. On the clutch side there was a little button sticking out in front of the clutch. So if you imagine you've got your clutch lever and there's the pivot, button was there. Do you know, I had no idea what that button was for, but we'll come back to that button. I had a little bit of a mess with that button a little bit later on. Once it was time to leave, into gear, rode away. The seating position was really awkward. I sit with my feet on footrests that are pretty much directly below me. These footrests are right forward, so your legs feel as though they're stretched out in front of you. It doesn't feel as though the footrests are doing anything to support your legs at all. And I felt all of the weight going into my hips. Now, it took me a little while to get used to it. I think after about 20 minutes, my left leg felt a little bit more comfortable than my right leg. I reckon give it a decent day's riding, I'd be all right with it, but it did feel immensely awkward. Especially when it came to things like gear change and rear brake. The gear lever is at an angle like that, and it's a heel and toe. So you push it and then click it with your heel. I never used my heel, I just did the usual, put my foot underneath it and clicked it, or put my foot on top of it and pushed it the other way. Initially that was a little bit uncomfortable. It didn't feel right because instead of having my foot level, my foot was up at a weird angle. But by the time I'd got back after the test ride, I was completely at ease with that. It was actually no trouble at all. The rear brake was different. My foot's like that on the footrest, and the brake pedal is like that, and it felt to me as I was going to have to break my ankle to be able to reach the brake pedal. At stages through the ride, I got it. I managed to reach the pedal and operate it. When I did, it felt actually pretty good. But even by the end of the half-hour ride, I still hadn't got used to that. Still was using just the front brake mostly rather than the rear brake. But once you got out and on the road and settled down, actually the riding was pretty good. I thought it held the road well. The handling was really solid. Acceleration wasn't anything to write home about. I guess it's because when you test ride these things, they keep you in a group and you're not allowed to overtake anybody. So you don't really get the opportunity to really thrash it through the gears. They don't let you slow down, for example, so you get a gap between you and the person in front, and then you catch up. However, third gear, 20 mile an hour, you come to a decent bit of road, you just open the throttle and it'll go all the way up to 60 mile an hour, which was as fast as we were allowed to go, really. With no effort. There was no juddering, no hesitation, nothing. It just went straight on and did it. It was lovely, really felt good. By the time I got back, we were going in, and as you go in, you come down a road and you do a full 180-degree turn in a big sweep. And by the time I got to needing to do that, I was in first gear, turned it round. It's not a hairpin, turned it round. And it was so smooth and stable. There was no twitchiness or anything like that at all. Just turned and went right the way round. Its low seat height was a bit of a problem for me. While I was actually riding and pulling up at a junction and trying to pull away, because my feet on my Kawasaki are only just flat on the floor, it doesn't take much to lift them up and put them on the footrest and you're away. This has seemed like a big effort to swing your feet forward and put them on the footrests, and there was a little bit of wobbliness from me. I think that's something you get used to. I can't see that ever being a problem. If I had a day's riding on it, it'd be pretty good, I'm sure. Remember I was talking about that little button? While I was actually riding, a car was flashing at me. So I reached forward and pressed that button, thinking that was the one that would change to low beam. When I pressed it, I saw a little letter F come up on the little instrument cluster. I thought, I pressed it again and I saw the letter B show up, and I was like, I've no idea what that means. No idea whatsoever. It's got nothing whatever to do with high beam or low beam. It's basically a button to cycle through the information, and when I was pressing it, it was cycling through trip A, trip B, trip F and odometer. So when I saw that letter F, it didn't mean full beam. It meant it actually put it on fuel, so it will tell me how many miles I've got left, I think, on the tank. The actual main beam switch is over on the left hand side. There's another, it's a black round switch that you turn. One way for main, the other way for normal low beam. The indicators on the left were great. Never had any problems with them. I never realised while I was riding the bike that you can push the indicator button inwards and that cancels the indicators. The other switch on the right hand side, where the starter button would normally be, that was for hazard lights. Flick it one way and all four of your indicators start flashing all at once. Flick it back and then it switches them all off. Couldn't find the side stand when I got back in. It's a long way back. I was in the area waiting to get off the bike and looking around trying to find the side stand. I couldn't see it at all. It turned out some bloke wandered over and dropped it for me, but he was a good foot or so behind where I was sitting. I've since looked at the photographs and it is actually, doesn't seem that far back when you see the photographs, but I couldn't find it while I sat in the back. I couldn't even see it when I leant over. Manual says the tank holds 15.7 litres. Of those 15.7 litres, it says you should only use 14.7. You shouldn't get into that last litre. It will apparently damage the fuel injectors. From a site, there's a YouTube video, I'll put a link to it up here. That chap got 14 miles per litre, so it means you're getting about 64 miles per gallon, about 196 to 200 miles on a tank full. And yet the owner's manual says you should always top up after 124 miles. It's 124 point something or other miles. It's not a lot if you're trying to tour. Normally I want something like 150 miles in between fill-ups, and 124 is just a little bit too early. I think anybody who actually owns the bike and has used it for touring, they could probably put me right and tell me that, yeah, the manual says that, but you don't need to worry about it. The other thing I found in the manual was weight limits. Its payload, it says, is 180 kilograms. And that's split between the rider, which they say up to 90 kilograms for the rider. I'm okay, I'm at 83 kilograms. Paul wouldn't be, he's 95, I have told him. But that leaves 90 kilograms for luggage, which is about, I think, 14 stone. But it's also more than I normally carry on my Kawasaki anyway. So as far as loading it's concerned, I'm not overly worried. The panniers are going to be a bit smaller than mine. The ones I've looked at are all about 32 litres, and mine are 52 litres for each pannier. My top box is 52 litres as well. And I think with this, the top box is not that big. Might be big enough for a single helmet. But I could definitely throw a 60 litre Lomo bag over the back seat, and weight-wise I'd have no problems. They do say that there is a limit on how fast you should ride the bike when you've got it loaded up. The manual says you shouldn't really go much above 70 mile an hour. In fact, it says don't go above 70 mile an hour. That's a bit of a restriction again. I'd want to be doing more than that on touring, particularly if you sat on a motorway on a transit day. That's a top speed of about 100 mile an hour. At my age, that's probably good enough. I don't think I need to worry overly much about that. Bit disappointed in the acceleration, but to be fair, when I look at it, it's got a quarter of the power of my Kawasaki and it weighs the same, so it's not going to accelerate anything like the same. But I do know a chap who's got a cruiser style bike that's not that much more powerful, and he belts along, so I would say that's down to didn't have a chance to really thrash it through the gears. The instruments, it's a single dial, and they cram a lot onto that single dial. They have a series of indicators along the bottom. One of them would be for anti-lock brakes, the other one would be for whether you're on main beam or not. Another is for indicators, and they've got a low fuel warning light there as well, and an engine warning light, and an oil warning light. They're normally all switched off. Your actual speed is a needle going around the outer circle of the instrument, and just inside of that there's a segmented grey circle. That's for your fuel, and it's got red when you get down to the bottom, and a warning light comes on for your fuel when you get as low as that. It's got a gear indicator. There are 6 gears on this bike apparently. I never got beyond 4th. It's then got your odometer and a few extra bits and pieces. Everything you need's there, and it's actually really clear to read while you're riding as well. On the one I test rode, it had next to it a smaller circular dial, and that one's for connecting up to your phone for sat-nav directions. It doesn't talk to you, and it doesn't give you a map. It doesn't do anything like that at all. What it does is it gives you an arrow to tell you which way you're supposed to turn next and how far away it is before you need to do that. And if you've got another turn immediately after that one within 100 meters, you get the big arrow to tell you what your next turn is, and above it a little arrow to tell you what you do after that, and each one has got the distance on it. Works on your phone by Bluetooth. It takes up to a couple of minutes for it to connect up to your phone through Bluetooth, and then a couple of seconds for it to settle down once you've picked your route. It's not bad, I don't think. I've not actually tried it. It would be good to try that out to see how it works. I wasn't expecting anything like that at all, but it's there. You also get a USB port under the left hand side cover. You say don't use it in the rain and don't use it for anything other than your mobile phone. you get the usual toolkit with it. All in all, you know, I really did enjoy that ride. Bear in mind what I've got. I've put a disc out in my spine, and it is improving. But I have a riding position where my back is like that in relation to the floor, and I have to tip my head back like that. And it's tipping my head back that compresses that disc, pushes it out, and then it pushes against the nerve that runs down my arm, and that becomes really painful. Now, I don't know if that's something that's going to be a permanent problem. If it is, I'll need a bike with a much more upright riding position. I've got to say, I enjoyed riding this bike so much. Pretty much on the top of my list for something to go and have a look at. There'll be some limitations with it, but yeah, I think it would work. Certainly when I did the half-hour ride, I never got any real pains in my arm at all. A little bit of a pain in this elbow, but you know, that time will sort that out. But if I really can't tip my head back like that without causing pain, then I'm going to have a look at something like this Meteor. Would I be happy with it? Yeah, I would. Absolutely. It's low enough for me because I'll need to be able to move the bike around without sort of pulling and pushing and everything on it. And I can do that, just sit on it and move it, it's fine. So that bit of it's okay. Riding position is great. Don't need to bend my neck or anything like that. I would want a fairing, not so much a fairing, a windscreen on the front, so that I don't get the air blowing straight into my face and I'm having to sort of press my face forward, and I think that would hurt a little bit. Other than that, yeah, I think it'd be a really good bike.